They say the eyes are the first to feast. If such is indeed the case, we wonder which flower is the best to feast on.
Welcome to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with your host, Michael Olson. And now get ready for 1 hour of What's Eating What Radio.
Well, hello out there. You are tuned into the 1379th edition of the Food Chain Radio Show. Or hey, perhaps you're among our friends over there in Akodalia who are tuned in as we stream along in the Food Chain page at metrofarm.com. Well, whoever you are and wherever you are, welcome aboard. I am Michael Olson, your host for this hour of What's Eating What. Folks, I once spent hours upon hours listening to Mandarin Chinese in the University of California, Santa Cruz Language Lab. The lab was dark, dank, and grindingly depressing. When my study session was over, which usually was when I couldn't stand the dark anymore, I would stumble out of the lab and sit on a log in the sunshine, because just beyond a deer fence was Alan Chadwick's French intensive biodynamic garden. And his garden was always full of pretty girls digging in the soil. Of course, with all the pretty girls, there were boys as well, but they didn't seem to enjoy the digging to the extent that the girls did. Though the garden held all manner of edible and medicinal plants, it excelled in its profusion of flowers. Beautiful girls in a beautiful garden filled with beautiful flowers. Too good to be true. And it was. The parents of Chadwick's students would eventually figure out how their children were spending their money digging in his living soil instead of the chemistry or literature books, and they raised hell with the university administration. What are you doing with my children digging in the soil like that? I tell this story because I really do believe the eyes are first to feast, and what better way to make a meal taste better, or to get out of trouble, than with a bouquet of beautiful flowers. And who better to talk about flowers and food than a farmer who grows flowers by the sea and sells them alongside food at the farmer's market. She is Kaysea Clark, owner and farmer of Flowers by the Sea in Moss Landing, California. Welcome to the Food Chain, Kaysea.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a great introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am happy you're here too. But first, you have to answer my question: is which flower is best to feast on?
Wow. I may be a little biased here because I have been working on a narcissus and daffodil farm since I was 18 years old. It is the farm that I now own. I inherited a portion of the land from my mentor, Bill the Bull Baron, who was the world's leading hybridizer of narcissus and daffodils and amaryllis, belladonna. And I would have to say the best flower to feast on is a narcissus or daffodil or one thereof.
I'll bet there are a lot of people who would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're here to talk about is Flowers by the Sea. You took your first job on a farm at 18?
Yes. So
right out of high school, you started working on a flower farm.
And it just was happenstance. You know, I worked at a restaurant, I worked at a coffee shop, and I was putting myself through college, and I had a college friend introduce me to a man who sold flowers to the farmer's market. And she said, it's a great place to work because you always just need extra labor and you can come down whenever you need more money. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity. So yes, at age 18, I started working part-time for Bill, and it slowly became who I am today, really.
Well, Alan Chadwick was up at University of California. It's probably before your time, but Bill the Bulb Man.
Yeah, so actually, the funny thing, you wrote that beautiful story about Alan Chadwick's garden, and I took many courses at Alan Chadwick Gardens. I am a graduate from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I was also captivated by the beauty of the Allen Chadwick Gardens. And I spent time there learning how to design bouquets, how to grow different roses. They have a beautiful rose collection up there. And it, in my opinion, one of the best places on campus.
Well, then you know that I wasn't too far from the truth when I talked about all the pretty girls digging in the soil.
You definitely were not. That is something that is very idyllic about that thing.
Now, did your parents call a university administration and chew them out for you're working in the flower garden instead of studying chemistry or biology?
The funny thing is as you read that, I am a bio major. So I have a double major in bio and environmental studies with an emphasis in plant science. So I did have my nose in biology books, but my real passion clearly led me to my hands in the living soil.
Good. And in the farmer's market too, right? Because the two kind of went together, working in the garden, working with Bill the Bulb Man and working in farmer's markets.
Yeah, so I've been working at the same farmers market since I was 18, and the two definitely go hand in hand. I feel like bio goes hand in hand as well, but it's all connected and it's a living system, and there's so much to learn, and you're never bored again um when you start to become a gardener and then progressively become a farmer. But once that happens, you have to have somewhere to support your need to be a gardener, right? And you always somehow end up at the farmer's market.
There you go. Um, you talked about bio being and part of the mix too, being a gardener and working in biology, because that's one of the things that really strikes me is that uh, Chadwick was very famous for bringing French intensive biodynamic gardening, which is essentially based on living soil. But why do you need living soil for flowers when you can grow flowers in an inert medium like perlite or something like that? Why living soil? Why is that important to you?
It is the most important aspect of gardening or flower growing or farming. Your plants get everything from the soil. Not only that, but your soil is interconnected with the living species above the soil and below the soil. So if you have healthy soils, you are there in turn protecting the root system of your plants through living organisms within the soil. If you have good soil, your plants are healthy and they are protected from natural pests that can sometimes out um, compete
Sure.
other native insects. And it's all a working system and it starts with your soil. So healthy soils, um, to me, is one of the most important aspects of any of growing any plant.
Okay, good. That seems to indicate that there's a spiritual element to what you do that is not readily apparent just by looking at your flowers. I say this because if you were to grow flowers in an inert medium, there would not be the life that gives your spirit its life.
Absolutely. That's a really intriguing point. I think that something that is captivating about the work that I do and that the work that other people do in farming or gardening is that it is a spiritual connection to living organisms all around you, and and you feel a part of the system and a part of the process, which we can so often get disconnected from in today's society and the ethereal world that we live in and the internet and all of these different places. And to come back to the essentials of food or the the beauty of the importance of the bees with the flowers and the interconnection between all of it, it is a spiritual process.
Do you feel that when you reach into the soil? I mean,
Yeah,
this
I can tell you that
the living
it's,
soil
oh,
is living soil. Do you
it's
feel
also
that when
healing.
you put your
It's like,
hands into the soil?
yeah, you definitely, I always say that like my garden or my farm has been the most healing place on the planet for me. You experience these also struggles in life and these moments that can become really difficult. And having your hands in the soil grounds you. It's one of the most healing processes. Like it grounds you, bringing life, catering, and also like participating in the cycle of life for other things around you that are greater than just you is very humbling.
And therefore healing at the same time. Humbling
Yeah.
and healing, right? There you
Yeah.
go. Now, tell us a little bit about your farm.
Thanks for asking. Yeah. So my farm, this is going to be my 5th year as the owner of my farm. It started out, like I said, working under my mentor. Um, So for many years, we just focused on narcissus and daffodils and amaryllis family of plants. So that's a very big family of plants. There's nerines, there's Brunsvigia, there's like South African, like South American bulbs, but primarily bulb species, which are perennial. Um, and they are fairly easy to grow and maintain. They are go for a squirrel, drought tolerant, come up with the rain. Um, they're just a really incredible, diverse collection of plants. And that was where I got my primary experience in growing. Um, and after my mentor passed
So,
away,
so when you be, so when you're getting your experience in growing, you're learning both how to hybridize from
yeah,
the master hybridizer, and you're learning
mhm,
about the soil from the
yes,
farmer as well. So you're learning both of these elements. And then working at the farmer's market, I bet you learned how to make the sale as well, all three of those
yeah,
things.
interacting with the community. I have other experience as well. I worked as a conservation biologist. Um, and I worked as a conservation biologist as well, which helps me learn how to do large planting of other crops.
Okay, good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're having fun today talking flowers with Kaysea. And Kaysea is the flower lady from the Flowers by the Sea. And that is right by the sea in Moss Landing, California. Now, that gives you a pretty benevolent climate to grow flowers in because not too hot, not too cold, almost just perfect, right? And when we come
Yeah, it's a
back,
great climb.
yeah, when we're going to come back, we're going to talk about making the transition from being a gardener to a farmer, because that's a big one. So please do stay tuned. This is the Food Chain. Michael Olson with Kaysea Clark and you. We're talking flowers.
I can't believe it. I'm so happy I can't sit down straight. Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. These are just a few of the great expressions we hear every day from folks who use Knox Roofing. We strive for making our customers feel totally confident to know they can depend on Knox Roofing to protect your greatest investment, your home. We want you to respond to us by saying expressions like, "Holy smokes! That's great." Call Knox Roofing anytime at 831-461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Has the holiday bustle got you searching for a peaceful place to work? Look no further than Satellite Santa Cruz, your holiday hideaway. Reserve a desk, office, or conference room. Enjoy free Wi-Fi, parking, coffee, and snacks. Give us a call today at 831-531-2300. Mention Santa Cruz Voice and enjoy a free day pass on us. Your holiday haven awaits.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum with some exciting news coming up on January 11th, Saturday. We're doing an amazing event, not only for Jacob's Heart, Kids with Cancer, where all your donations will go to Jacob's Heart on that day, but also to help you realize the best health you can have. We're doing a TRT special, our Softwave Machine Stem Cell Extravaganza, where you can come in and get a TRT treatment exam, x-rays, consultation, including a next day report of finding for just $49. All proceeds will go to Jacob's Heart. And here's what my staff has to say about it.
Hey y'all, I'm Lena, front desk at McCollum Family Chiropractic, and I can't wait to see you all on January 11th.
We're excited to see you. I'm Crystal, and I will take your phone calls at 459-9990.
831-459-9990. See you then.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis, so we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website, hookoutlet.com, for deals and stay groovy.
I'm proud to have served this country. Helping veterans is something all Americans can participate in, and it's as simple as donating an old car that you have sitting around. Call the Veteran Card Donation Program right now. They'll come and pick your car up for free, and you'll get a tax deduction in the process. Call
800-640-9509. 800-640-9509. 800-640-9509.
Thank you.
Let's go back for more of What's Eating What on the Food Chain with Michael Olson.
And Kaysea Clark, who is the proprietor of Flowers by the Sea, a flower farm near Moss Landing, California. And she takes the flowers that she grows there and sells them at farmers markets. Now, how many markets do you service, by the way?
I service in my peak season 5 farmers market a week.
5 farmers.
And then in my slower season, I go down to 2.
Okay. And we're in the Christmas season here, so I suspect you're down to 2 flowers markets.
Yes, that is true. However, I kind of have an interesting dynamic at my farm because of narcissus and daffodils. My peak season, or I have 2 peak seasons, one in the summer and one in the winter. And as December and January begin to happen, I go into my peak narcissus and daffodil season.
Oh, good. Now I have to tell a story because it's something that just happened to me. My wife was coming back from an extended stay away. And I thought, well, I'll get some flowers to put on the kitchen table so when she walks in, it'll be beautiful. So I went to the farmer's market for some Flowers by the Sea flowers, but the Flowers by the Sea wasn't there. And so I panicked and I stopped at a supermarket with a national name brand and ran in. And there were some yellow roses there and they looked pretty. And so I grabbed them and I took them home and I opened them up to put them in a vase, and the whole bouquet just fell apart on me. And when I kind of fixed them and put them in a vase anyway, and I got my wife from the airport, she looked at the flowers and she said, "Where did you get those?" And I said, "From the supermarket." She said, "You have to promise me never buy those again, because I don't need flowers all the time. I appreciate really nice flowers, but those flowers were terrible." Well, and so I made the promise never to buy those supermarket flowers again, and I'm going to keep that promise. We're talking a little bit about the transition one must make from being a gardener to a farmer. Did you, as a gardener, an 18-year-old gardener, did you always have it in your mind to become that farmer?
I did not, actually. I thought I'd probably become a conservation biologist. But as my love for gardening grew, pun intended, so did the amount of land I needed to garden on.
And how big is your farm now?
My farm is acres.
6 acres? Well, that's pretty
Yes.
good. That's pretty sizable then.
And about 3 of those acres are bulbs. And I have about 3 acres of revolving annual and perennial flowers for the summer.
Good. Okay. So flowers market farmers. Flowers, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So you made this transition gradually or abruptly from gardener to farmer?
It was a gradual gradual thing that happened over time. I find that that can be the best way to go from gardener to farmer, but also just understanding what you are doing is the hardest part. I mean, each flower that you grow is like learning a new personality. And so you have to understand, does it like warmer temperatures? Does it like to be started by seed in a greenhouse first? Does it like to be planted in this area or that? And as you become more familiar with the crops that you're growing, you're able to scale.
Okay. Now, as you picked up this knowledge, you did so as a farm worker, right?
Well, that's not exactly how it happened. Like I said, I work on the bulb farm, and I actually primarily worked with bulbs. So other annual perennial crops and things like that I had done on a garden scale at my home.
Okay.
When my mentor passed away, I needed to adjust how we were managing the farm because in the summertime, he took the summers off from farmers market and from growing. And so that was not sustainable for me as far as income. I mean, I thought, how am I going to take 6 months off? That doesn't make any sense. So I decided that I would grow year-round crops. And for me, that I already had experience, like I said, growing in Alan Chadwick Gardens, planting conservation plants in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And so I was familiar with growing crops. I wasn't familiar with growing year-round flower crops. And so that process and scale grew as I learned. And as I learned what did well in my area, what did well in my climate, what time to plant, when to plant, how to not have major gaps in your season. That's a really big thing, especially the difference between gardening and flower growing. And if you want to make it a sustainable income.
Right. Yeah, there's the rotation that you have to
Yes.
command. Right. Good. Which is a job in itself. And as you were doing this, you have a piece of land, which is really significant for any small-scale farmer, is that how do you overcome the obstacle of getting land? And you said your mentor gifted you some of the land?
Well, I just took over the lease.
Took over
So
the
the
lease.
land was
Okay.
there, and I took over a portion of the lease. I do think that that finding land can be a feat for a lot of people that don't understand how to do it. FarmLink is a very good resource to find land in our area and a lot of other areas. And also, I think that you can grow a significant amount of crops on a small portion of land. You can grow a market garden on 1 acre or even less, and it can be a substantial income for you. As you get bigger and you want to have more perennial crops or things like that, you might need more area for those to stay in, so you don't have to move them. But I think you can really make a significant profit on something very small.
Very small. And so you don't need to think in terms of buying a big farm. If you're farming
No.
for the city, you can get a lot of production from a small parcel of land if you do it
Absolutely.
in the right ways. And that
Yeah.
was part of your education, both with Alan Chadwick and at the University of California. So you were getting a kind of a classic education in biology and getting this, I don't know, what would you call it, a Chadwickian kind of education in the garden itself. And then,
Yes.
so what about the financial part of it? Did you kind of pick that up as you were going along, the wherewithal to make the money work for you?
Yeah, it was kind of sink or swim for me as far as financial. I always say though, start small and stay within your means. What I've seen, I work with a lot of different farmers and I'm connected with groups of farmers in the community. I'm part of a flower hub, which is a group of about 8 flower farmers in the area. And I'm also an organic vegetable farmer up the North Coast. And I am connected with a huge community of organic vegetable farmers. And what I see a lot of people run into and the problems that they run into is that they over purchase before having sales channels. So I'm a big advocate of starting small and growing slowly.
It's interesting.
And yeah,
It's interesting because that's exactly the advice every one of the people I featured in my book, Metro Farm, gave as well. And I watched one of them, a gal who had 2 daughters, and they were growing houseplants up in Medford, Oregon. And they figured out the perfect niche for it. But it was so tempting to get big that they went out and got a great big giant greenhouse and then ended up with employees and then ended up with all kinds of trouble. But they were doing really good when they were small and tight. And perhaps your advice should have been given to them before they made the big purchase.
I would only say too, something that's wonderful is that if you have the capacity, start with like 3 plants that you can get to know and then grow based on that. And simple plants like wheat peas or snapdragons that are cut and come again that can give you diverse blooms for a long period of time and see how those things work for you and grow your selection of crops over time. Um, that's, that was my model. And I'm really happy that I did it that way because I didn't take on a lot of debt. I did a lot of things by hand. And it allowed me the space to learn and fail without so much pressure and stress on me. Obviously, there's always going to be an amount of pressure and stress on you if you're running a business. But I can tell you, like, if you become a gardener, if you become a farmer, especially, you will kill plants. And that becomes very stressful if you feel like you want to be a good mother. You get all these feelings of, I'm not doing things right. I'm not, but that is part of the learning process.
And losing a few plants along the way is one of them. Absolutely. Good. And making that transition into a business person, what was your biggest mistake?
I would say my biggest mistake was not using the right tools for the job. And that was primarily because of financial means. And what ends up happening, what ended up happening for me is the soil suffered, which we discussed. There's a rotation and a cover crop and a practice that is really, really important. But if you don't have the correct tools to get all those things in place, you have to do what you can, but then your crops suffer. And so finding the right tools, even at a minimum scale, I think is really, really important.
Right. And it's possible to find them without having to buy them too, right?
Yeah, you can definitely rent things. I would say a great book that I really, really love is called The Market Gardener.
Hmm.
And there's small scale tools that allow you to that significantly impact the soil that can be low cost. And I think that I didn't because my mentor was a bulb grower and my background was in conservation. I hadn't had the skills or I didn't have the knowledge around what tools I needed to use for for farming or for production practices. And so that was a learning curve that just took me time and experience. And if I had have known at the beginning, I would have gotten better production and better maintenance of my soil.
So, do you work with other farmers? Do you ask questions with them as well? How did you do this?
Yeah. So I have in the last few years gotten really connected to the farming community. Something that was very difficult about the time that I started growing by myself and then also getting to an all year round farming business model was I started during COVID. And that wasn't by design. It was that my mentor had passed away a few months before COVID happened. And so getting connected to people during that time was really difficult. And so I think that that held me back from learning more quickly things that I could have known sooner. But now that I am within the community, those questions that I have, I can ask. And I think it's really important to reach out to your other local growers. And they want you to. Everybody wants to find more like-minded people around them doing similar things because we are a small niche of a particular person. And I think most people are excited to explain their knowledge to others and help people grow.
Do you belong to any formal groups in the area?
Yeah. So I am like I said, part of Gather Flora, which is a larger group of farmers in the California area. It's like a hub of growers. And from like Sonoma to San Francisco to Santa Cruz to, Monterey, all over California area. And then there's subsidies within that. And it's called the Flower Hub, where I'm part of a group of all local flower growers.
So
in the area which we
information,
have.
information then is kind of at your fingertips. You pick up a phone and call somebody. Help! What did you do here? And then there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those
So
are the main groups.
yeah. So we have a minute left, but I'd like to say that it's been really fascinating talking about your growing and the relationship between the biology that is so important to you. Do you think that biology makes a difference in the value of your flowers?
100%. It is, I think, the crucial point in growing.
Okay, that's what we're going to pick up when we come back from this break. Michael Olson with Kaysea Clark. She, the owner of Flowers by the Sea, Moss Landing, California. She grows very specific flowers, but she grows them just right. And people love them at the farmer's market, which is where she sells them. And that's what we're going to learn about when we come back is how do you sell at a farmer's market? This is The Food Chain. Michael Olson, Kaysea Clark, right back.
You can earn a substantial income by farming for the city. All you need to do is take your crop to market and win the competition for the consumer dollars. There is a well-proven strategy for winning this competition. You will find it embedded in Metro Farm, the guide to growing in or near the city for the city.
Port Ideas, Greg Williams.
There's a tremendous amount of useful information in Metro Farm for farming in or near the city.
Acres USA's Charles Walters.
Metro Farm tells how to convert an opportunity into a real going concern. Every chapter is organized around the logic of practicality. For every problem needing a solution, Metro Farm offers a progression of steps arranged in sequence so the desired goal is achieved.
Before you plant your seeds, pick up a copy of the Ben Franklin Book of the Year award-winning Metro Farm. Then plant your seeds and win the dollars. MetroFarm.com. metrofarm.com.
We're on the farm with Joel Salatin.
Would you like to buy homemade soup, backyard chicken, and the neighbor's artisanal lunch meat? The Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund protects your right to acquire the food of your choice from the source of your choice. I'm Joel Salatin from Polyface Farm, and I urge you to defend the right of neighbors to engage in direct food commerce. Join today at farmtoconsumer.org, the food of your choice from the source of your choice. That's farmtoconsumer.org. Farmtoconsumer.org. Thank you.
When you buy local American-grown flowers, flowers will grow and flourish in America. Hello, I'm Deborah Prinzing, author of Slow Flowers for Certified American-Grown Flowers. When you buy local flowers, you're helping our country's family farms reduce the transportation footprint of flowers and enjoy fresher, longer-lasting bouquets. So please, next time you shop for flowers, think local. Think Certified American-Grown Flowers. Visit AmericanGrownFlowers.org to learn more.
History buffs. This tale from Michael Olson's Tales from a Tin Can took place aboard the USS Dale during the opening moments 7 December 1941.
As we left our berth and got underway, the deck force was still engaged in getting ready for combat. Fuller had the job of clearing the deck of all the wooden objects that had collected in port, so Fuller was making his way aft, just tossing stuff like a madman, when he came to the ice cream freeze. Before he could toss it over the side, one of the guys said, "Hey, wait a minute!" In a matter of seconds, the lock was broken and the ice cream distributed among the crew. So, what you saw that morning was the USS Dale steaming hell-bent out to the channel while the guys back aft were standing by their guns, eating ice cream and watching World War II break out all around.
Tales from a Tin Can contains 424 tales by 44 sailors aboard the USS Dale, from Pearl Harbor to Tokyo Bay. Order your Father's Day copy at talesfromatincan.com. That's talesfromatincan.com.
So much to say, so little time to say it on the Food Chain with Michael Olson.
Welcome back. This is the Food Chain. I am Michael Olson. We are with Kaysea Clark. She, the farmer of Flowers by the Sea in Moss Landing, California. We've learned a lot about how you go about learning how to farm, learning how to grow, learning how to farm, making the transition from being a gardener to a farmer, which is a big transition because when you're a gardener, it's the most pleasant thing in the world because you can garden when you want. But when you're a farmer, you have to farm when you needed to farm. And that is a big transition there. Let's see, making that transition from farmer now to seller at the farmer's market. So you're a business person. You're in the retail trade of selling flowers. But not just flowers. They're flowers that you grow. And I always say, if you want to know what's in the food, you have to look into the farmer's face. And that's what people do when they come and buy flowers from you, isn't it?
Yeah, I always say the farmer's market is one of the most important parts of the job and it brings so much soul to what I do because I get to connect with my community and see that smile that happens when people get a bouquet of flowers that was grown only a few miles from where they live. And it's a really special connection.
Well, according to my connection with the rose growers in Colombia, I think that I'm done with that. We're going to stick with farmers market flowers from now on. So you sell at 5 different farmers markets. Now, are they all the same? Or are they all different?
So each market is different. It's ran by a different association typically. The community dynamics are different. So what the clientele wants can be different from one market to another. I have a particular business model that allows people to mix and match and make their own bouquet, and I call it the bouquet bar, where it's happy hour all day.
Very good.
But also, some people like pre-made mixed bouquets. They're more in a hurry. It's a busier market. They don't want to wait in line. They don't want to take their time to choose out their individual flowers. So you definitely have to um, be particular in your sales strategy dependent upon
On the people there. So in some markets, people are more leisurely. In other markets, they're in a hurry. And depending on the nature of the customer, you have to go there.
Yes, absolutely.
And you sell at 5 different markets?
I sell at 5 different markets around the Bay Area: Menlo Park, Campbell, Carmel by the Sea, and 2 Santa Cruz markets, the West Side and Live Oak.
Okay. So you're working with a lot of different people now. You don't do all of that selling by yourself. You must hire people, correct?
Yeah, so I harvest and I grow primarily by myself. I have one other helper out at the farm. And then I do hire, I call them marketeers, which are people who help me at the farmer's market. But I also do a lot of the markets by myself. I started doing about 4 markets by myself a week, and then I'd have one person hired. And now I've delegated a lot more as I've grown.
Do you hire those 18-year-olds that were you when you started?
Absolutely. It's very funny because Bill, you mentioned Alan Chadwick Gardens, but Bill had a similar strategy to Alan Chadwick Gardens, my mentor did, on how he hired for the farmers market. And I feel like that structure has kind of remained the same for me as well.
What was the strategy?
Pretty girls making flower bouquets.
There you go. Okay. And that's a good sales point when it gets right down to for people walking around the market. Yeah.
What do you think works for me? It's not just pretty girls. I have both, men and women working for me and all the in between. So it's more about personality and customer service, really, that people feel like they're coming to their backyard to put a bouquet of flowers together. I mean, that's really what I like to capture.
Do people ask you about the flowers?
Yeah, that's the same part too, is like when you're at the market, there's a lot of questions about what flower is this. There's a lot of flowers that most people haven't seen because you only see certain flowers at a supermarket. That's also the beauty of going to a farmer's market, is you're getting somebody who night and day works on bringing you the best quality stuff and also unique things. And there's only certain things that will stay fresh in a supermarket bouquet. And we have the flexibility because we are picking that, oftentimes the day before or, maybe 2 days before and putting them in the cooler. You're getting the freshest flowers that you could possibly get anywhere in the world if you go to the farmer's market, especially purchasing from me. But, and you get unique varieties that wouldn't last long enough to be shipped.
There you go. And that's probably the most significant difference between supermarket flowers. They will be the varieties that one of the 4 varieties or so that can be shipped, probably from Colombia, which is where most of the roses come from these days. Now, do people ask whether the flowers have been grown organically? Did you hear?
Yeah, they do ask that. I do not have my organic certification primarily because it's a big process. The land was not previously certified organic, so it's a 7-year certification process for me to get certified as CCOF organic at my flower farm. However, I use all OMRI approved practices. And the people within the Flower Hub are required to do that in order to be a part of that association. I am also an organic certified vegetable grower up on the North Coast because that land was previously certified organic. So my practices are organic practices. I don't use pesticides or fungicides or anything like that. But for the flowers, I just don't have that certification.
I wonder, the reason I asked is that I wonder how much of a market uh, for organic flowers there would be. Would it make that much of a difference to people? It would be to me, I think, but I know you and I know your practices. But for the general consumer, does it make a big difference that you don't have that certification?
I think that if you're selling at a larger scale where, um, like, if you're going to go buy supermarket flowers, I think it is imperative that you buy organic flowers. Um, Knowing the farmer is part of the beauty of like those certifications were put into place so if people could sell at a large scale and be able to knowingly purchase the what is the word? The knowingly purchase what they believe in.
Mhm.
Um, and the beauty of a farmer's market is the farmer. And I think that that is what taken out of large scale globalization is you don't know the farmer, so you need these certifications in order to know what is happening at that farm. Um, yeah, that's an amazing thing about the farmer's market is most people know me and most people know my practices.
So there it is. Then you really don't need the organic designation because everybody knows, or most everybody knows that you are what you preach. Now, what about the new words that are coming in, uh, seemingly to supplant organic, and that would be sustainable and regenerative? I understand that the state of California right now is mulling over an official definition, I guess it would be, for the word sustainable. And so they put a big committee together and came to the conclusion that nobody knows what it means, really. So, um, do you think there is a need for a further definition of the word organic? Or do you, as a local farmer selling to local people, do you think, it's a bunch of hooey?
You know, I really believe in organic farming. The only reason why my flower farm is not certified organic is because of the 7-year policy, and I don't have even a 7-year lease. So my goal is to when and if I move flowers at the seed to go to a property that is previously certified organic so that I can get that certification. Um, it's important, definitely, I think, for a consumer and for accountability. I do think also there are some political things within the farming group that we discussed on just more regulations, more taxes, more payments that a lot of farmers struggle with, and it's like at least 5 grand to get your certification for CCOF. I know that because I am certified organic as a vegetable grower. And for small scale farms, that's really, really expensive. And so there is definitely, and there's a lot of regulation um, that puts a lot of pressure. So I think that to answer your question around the label organic as well, I think on a large scale it is really, really important. So large scale farmer. So what's happening with like the USDA and FDA is they're allowing things to be organic that aren't really within the principles of organic any longer. And so you will see that organic certification and think these are the practices that I'm in alignment with. However, not knowing what's actually behind those. So like, for example, at my vegetable farm, we have now started the process of becoming real organic certified. It's another certification practice that incorporates both your labor practices, your integrity with native conservation, a lot of other things that the USDA and the FDA are no longer participating in to get your organic certification to allow these larger scale farmers to become organic. And yes, that's why it's so important to know your farmer, because the principles of organic farming are changing so that they can, for sales strategies, right?
Michael Olson's second law of the food chain: the farther you go from the source of your food, the less control you have over what's in your food. And when you're buying food from the farmer and you can look into her eyes and see what's in the food, you don't really need any government regulations when it gets right down to it.
That you put that in a much better way. That's what I was getting to.
Well, it's a tough one. Looking into your future, would you like to find a piece of property that is designated organic?
I would. I don't have a long-term lease down in Moss Landing. And so I know that in the future, I will probably have to move. Part of the reason why I started farming vegetables was because I got a piece of property at the North Coast on Old Strongberry land, which is organic certified. And I found that I saw my long-term self and my long-term vision in alignment with the practices up the North Coast with smaller farms that I can be in a part of the community. Down in Moss Landing, there's really big agriculture, big strawberry farms, all of that, and it's less connected. And so long-term, I do foresee myself moving far up the sea, up north.
But not too far away from a market, right?
Oh yeah, and we will still be very close to our market.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Good. And then, and what advice would you give to somebody who's starting out like you did when you were 18?
The best piece of advice that I would give is to give yourself compassion, be patient with yourself and the plant, and reach out to your local community of growers so that you can be connected and ask a lot of questions. They want to provide you the answers, and it will save you a lot of time.
Make friends with the world, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I'm honored to have you aboard, Kaysea Clark, who is the owner and the farmer and the marketer at Flowers by the Sea. What a great name. I was wondering if you took the name Kaysea because it has S-E-A at the end, and that was a way that you found yourself farming by the sea. Thank you for joining us.
I may have been my calling.
There you go. Kaysea Clark, thank you so much for joining us. And stay tuned, folks, next week for more What's Eating What.
You've been listening to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with Michael Olson. And if your friends missed the show, tell them to log on the Food Chain page at metrofarm.com for a listen. Now, go out and find some food with its farmer's face on it and live.